Hello and welcome back to France. We just flew into Paris, picked up a rental car, and we are heading off to Normandy. Our first stop is Rouen. It was a really long day getting here. We happened to be coming all the way from the States, so we flew and then drove all the way to Rouen. So we're a little bit tired, but here with the rest of our afternoon, we're going to walk around, orient ourselves, and get the lay of the land here. After admiring this beautiful 14th century clock, we beelined over to the Church of Saint-Maclou, a masterpiece of late Gothic architecture, which I've wanted to see since we picked up this old engraving in an antique shop last year. This famous facade of the Cathedral of Rouen was made famous by several paintings by Monet. His fascination with this spot is easy to understand, the light on the tracery and detail, captivating. Let's go check it out inside. This space-age looking church was put up in 1979 in honor of Joan of Arc, right next to the site of her execution by the English 548 years previously, ostensibly for wearing men's clothes and heresy, but really in order to undermine the legitimacy of the French king. Nowadays, they've got a nice little market there. Though much of Rouen was damaged during the war, the medieval core of the city is more intact than you might expect and makes for a nice place to walk around. It's a little snug. More impressive Gothic architecture at the Abbey of Saint-Ouen. For lunch, we headed to the market to look around. It's an almost bewildering array of possibilities.
There's your steaks. That's good.
The Musée des Beaux-Arts has a fascinating collection. Works include oddities like this painting, which can only really be viewed in a reflective cylinder. Religious blockbusters like these. Several detailed little dioramas. And a collection of impressionist work placed in geographic context. The museum is also set up in places to just lounge and hang out. A special exhibition includes works by Whistler, as well as some of his contemporaries and inspirations. The exhibit includes this, his most famous work, as well as an opportunity for visitors to duplicate it on their own. The next morning we're back on the road. First stop is the little village of Étretat. It's a small place given its popularity, and parking is limited and super tight. That's how we have to get in. The town is nice, but it is this view, a frequent subject of Monet's paintings, that brings in the visitors.
Museum is closed, but there's an informational sign about two guys who tried to fly across the Atlantic from here and didn't make it. A large monument to those lost aviators.
On our way down the hill, we found out that there had been an easier way up.
Continue to follow the D940.
Back on the road, we went through the port city of Le Havre, where massive pieces of wind turbines, presumably for offshore wind development, I'm guessing, are all over the place. Presumably they're shipping out from here. Next up is a quick stop in the picturesque fishing village of Honfleur. And a walk through their museum. Honfleur is the home of the artist Boudin, mentor to Monet, who also spent at least a little time here. Evening finds us briefly in Cannes before we are back on the road. First stop this morning is Bayeux, home of the famous tapestry chronicling the Norman conquest of England. And we headed directly to go take a look at it. Beyond the obvious artistry and historical importance of it, it's impressively big. While it's less than 2 feet wide, it's more than 220 feet long. It tells the whole story, from the Norman perspective, of the lead up to and ultimately the conquest of England by William. A small exhibit on site provides a little bit of context. Next, we visited one of the many, many D-Day museums that there are in the area.
On the Eastern Front, the Soviet Union had recovered.
Once again, today starts up on the road. Our first stop will be the British D-Day Memorial. A temporary exhibition here has steel silhouettes marking every British life lost during the invasion. Our next stop is the seaside town of Granville, which will be our base for the next couple of days. Here in Granville, Jamie's excited to take us to the childhood home of Christian Dior, but en route is this odd little miniature zoo.
It smells so nice.
So during World War II, the dresses were scaled back, they were plain, they were boring, they were short, not a lot of material. And then after the war, Christian came up with his designs to kind of return to that old world with the big flowy dresses and very feminine looking. So this is parts of his collection, kind of returning to that, which people were surprised and outraged almost by, because it was so much material. And it was the thing that he focused on is femininity, to make women look beautiful by just putting their clothes on, just naturally look good in their clothes.
short drive outside of Granville brings us to a small cidery run by an older gentleman named Philippe, who's happy to show us around.
There is 13 varieties of apple trees.
This presses the apples to make the juice?
Yeah, we work here with this kind of thing, about 10 degrees nowadays.
It smells nice.
Yeah.
Finally, we got to taste the goods, and they were good. We brought several bottles home with us. Back in Granville, we headed down to the water, first to check out the beach, and then to head over to the harbor to find some seafood for dinner. Jamie decided to try the whelks. It turns out a whelk is a little bit of a puzzle for a first-timer like us, but Jamie persevered.
That's good.
After dinner, we headed up the hill that overlooks the harbor and the town to take in the views and check out the church.
Good morning. We're heading off to Mont Saint-Michel. You may remember from our Cornwall video where we went to St. Michael's Mount, a little castle on a little rock right offshore in Cornwall. Well, this is the original in France. It's bigger, older, and hopefully better.
No surprise, Mont Saint-Michel is very popular. You have to park a little ways out, take a walk to a bus, ride the bus to the mountain, and then walk the last little bit in. Time was tight for our tour at the top, so we had to hustle through the medieval streets turned tourist traps en route. Never fear, dear viewer, we made it.
Okay, so hello to everyone. My name is Ewan.
The tour goes through all sorts of crypts and vaults, including some of the oldest, like St. Martin's crypt here, much of which dates from the 11th century, but some might be 10th. We got the opportunity, some might say it's an opportunity, to experience what it's like just for a few minutes in the cells where they would hold captured nobles for ransom. Leaving Mont Saint-Michel, we were back on the road, heading to the American Cemetery. The visit starts in an interpretive center, where the history of the invasion is laid out. Then you enter a simple memorial hall, where the names of all the service members who lost their lives are read aloud.
Leslie M. Irvin, Jens P. Schnuller.
The cemetery itself is orderly and peaceful, but the story of the overwhelming sacrifice is told evocatively in the ocean of gravestones. Our next stop is Omaha Beach, which is nearby the cemetery. Finally, we're heading back to our last stop, Cannes. We spent a night here, but didn't get much of a chance to see the place. We're going to walk around a little bit, see what there is to see, and then catch our ferry back to England. That church in the background there is St. Stephen's, the final resting place of William the Conqueror, and our next stop. Looking a little bit like a piece of toast, this is a fairly humble memorial for such an important guy. The castle is very impressive with imposing views on the outside. Unfortunately, we got there a little bit late and it was mostly closed and very under construction on the inside. Our day starts at the terminal where we catch our ferry to cross the English Channel, a crossing that twice has weighed heavily on history. First in 1066, when William conquered England, and again on June 6, 1944, when the Allies came back the other way to press the Nazis out of France and into defeat.